Good evening, everybody. How you doing? Welcome to Monster Territory, brought to you by the Foul Territory Network. That was an ugly one tonight. Absolutely ugly. Out of all my years of watching Red Sox games, I mean, it's probably some recency bias that's getting involved here a little bit, but this was one of the most, it's got to be up there with one of the most depressing losses. Like, just everything. No offense. Pitching was just meh. Brian Bayo, sure, quality start, but in my opinion, I don't think it was really all that great of a start for Brian Bayo tonight. You could look at a positive thing with him where it wasn't his best stuff tonight, but he was able to get through 6 innings. So, you could look at it that way. But then the bullpen not able to keep you in the game. His bullpen's been taxed as of late, but you had the day off yesterday. People are going to point to that, but to me, bullpen stunk tonight. You just had nothing. There was just nothing at all, really. Maybe a couple of bright spots here tonight. Roman Anthony in the beginning of the game had a hard hit double there. I've been saying for a little bit now. Looks like I think he's about to turn the corner, and you saw a sign of that here tonight. But, I don't know. I was thinking there for a little bit, okay, sure. We got rid of Rafi, went to San Francisco. But, can you maybe put some good at-bats together, get some runs across the board, enough until Bregman and Yoshida come back? Now I'm starting to get a little worried here. You've lost 6 straight now. You're 40-43. This is a good Blue Jays team. To me, they're playing better than I thought they were going to. I wasn't really sure about this Blue Jays team coming into the year, but they're looking solid. They've been giving the Red Sox fits this entire year. So tip of the cap to them. But, Jose Barrios, the guy's a veteran. He hasn't had his best stuff this year. He's been a bit inconsistent, has looked better as of late, but the Red Sox just had nothing against him. Absolutely nothing. Not even a challenge. It didn't even look competitive. Nothing. It was just an embarrassing performance, an ugly performance. I don't know, man. I think back to, some pretty tough losses over the years. Honestly, obviously, I can't really think of a loss off the top of my head. Obviously, there's been some ugly ones along the way. But when I think about a feeling of tonight, it kind of almost made me feel how I felt during that September collapse back in 2011. Am I being a little dramatic with that statement? Probably. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Who knows? Maybe they come back and win these next couple of games. But that's kind of how it felt tonight, right? You're, 5-game losing streak. You're back home. You're needing to build some kind of momentum. You're needing to get back on track to try and save your season, to try and stay afloat here. You're not completely out of this wild card race, but you go back to that 2011 season. You go to September when, going into September, you had a huge lead, in the wild card race to get to the postseason. And, every game you turn it on and they're just finding a new way to lose this game, whether, it's bad pitching. That was 14 years ago at this point. But I still remember that. You had awful pitching. You couldn't score runs. You were blowing games late. Just felt like, this good team that you had, it was just slipping away. And that's almost how this feels. 5 straight losses coming in, and you couldn't even put up a fight. That's it's tough to watch. Tough to watch that. Just gave me those feelings from 14 years ago. We got a lot to talk about, though. Other than the game here tonight, I'm not going to waste a lot of your time talking about this game tonight. There's really not much to dive into, but we do have a lot of other news when it comes to roster news, rehab assignments, and we did touch on this in the last episode. I'm going to go over it again because, obviously a bad loss tonight. You're starting to think, well, are they getting closer to being sellers? And I'll go over that Jeff Passan article that he put out a few days ago, going over his top 50 trade candidates. 4 different Red Sox made that list. And we talked about the surprising candidate at number 1 on that list, Alex Bregman. But I'll give you my thoughts on that again. There were a couple other things I didn't touch on, so I'm going to get back to that. But also going to dive into Craig Breslow's comments yesterday, talking to the media, talking to the guys at WEEI, and giving his thoughts on, whether or not they're going to buy, sell, So I'll dive into those comments a little bit. Like I said, rehab assignments. Alex Bregman, Masataka Yoshida got some news on them. Tanner Houck, he was on a rehab appearance yesterday. Did not go good. It looks like they have some kind of a plan in place with him. I'll give you my thoughts on that. I thought they have a bit of a unique idea with Tanner Houck. It looks like for his next outing. We'll see if that sticks, but I'll give you my thoughts on that as well. Yeah, tough night, everybody. I wish we could have more positive things to talk about. It was looking fun there for a little bit. You had that big winning streak. You were winning a couple of series against the Yankees. Things were looking up. Even after you traded Rafi, you take 2 out of 3 in Seattle. You take the first game in San Francisco. Things were they were looking fun there. But ever since that second game in San Fran, it has just been awful. It has been awful. We'll dive into it. But before I do, we do have just a quick word from our sponsor.
People liked this last time, so we're going to do it again. Read one of the fantastic, unique, creative dishes on HelloFresh. Creamy Alfredo truffle cavatappi pasta?
Cavatappi, maybe? But I'll just go with the Indian-inspired chicken paired with turmeric rice. That sounds awesome. Everything about this is delicious, fresh, comes in a little bag, and I like to cook, so I like to chop up the ingredients. I like to throw stuff in the pan, mix it up. It makes me feel like I'm doing something, Scott, and they always come out amazing.
Yes, you can be a star at home with America's #1 meal kit. Make your summer enjoyable and delicious by signing up for HelloFresh at HelloFresh.com/FT10FM and get 10 free meals with a free item for life. That's HelloFresh.com/FT10FM for 10 free meals and a free item in every box. 1 per box with an active subscription. Free meals are applied as a discount on the first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan.
All righty, let's get to it here. Let's talk about Brayan Bello. Like I said, quality start. Not the best quality start you'll ever see, but there were clearly some issues here with Brayan Bello tonight, and he has looked better as of late, but you started to see him revert back to some old habits here. Leading with the sinkers tonight, I think that's a good call for him. He got some whiffs on the fastball along the way, but the problem tonight with Brayan Bello, he couldn't get ahead of guys. He got no whiffs on the sweeper here tonight. He got 1 on the changeup. The changeup, I actually looked a little further. Back in 2023, the average mile per hour on the changeup was 86 miles an hour. This year, it's 89 miles per hour. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and act like, I'm a pro ball player. I'm a professional hitter up there, but I would imagine a 3 mile per hour difference when it comes to an off-speed pitch, that is going to make a huge difference in being able to differentiate it between a fastball or a lack of differentiation compared to the fastball, right? He's sitting around, 94, 95 with the fastball sinker, and then you're coming 89 with a changeup. There's a bit less movement on it this year. We have talked about the changeup, but it was looking a little better over the last couple of starts. You were seeing a bit more action on it, a bit more vertical break. But I don't know what's going on with that pitch with him this year. I don't know if it's like something with the grip or just he's lacking the feel. Could it be something with the ball? I don't know. I have no idea. I'm curious on that. But that's clearly been a pitch that has not been consistent for him this year. And, the sweeper, not getting anything on it. These guys aren't getting fooled with Brayan Bello. He's basically really what he's doing at this point. He's just leaving too many hittable pitches over the zone. He's falling behind in the counts. He's lacking command. He's basically just getting by with just trying to pound the zone, getting weak contact, getting ground balls. That's pretty much what he is at this point. Again, he was looking a little better the last couple of starts, but looking at it from a consistent point of view with kind of how he's been for most of the year, right? It's really what he seems to go back to a lot. Tonight, 6 innings, 8 hits, 3 earned, 3 walks, only 1 strikeout. Listen, I know this Blue Jays team, they got some pretty good ABs in that lineup. Obviously, Vlad, Bo Bichette, Barger looked good here tonight. Springer always gives the Red Sox fits. But I don't know, man. Just Bello, sure, again, he looked all right there for a few starts, looked better. But tonight, they just had his number. They couldn't really get anything going. But let's get to the offense here. Lifeless offense. I mean, there's really not much to talk about here. Jose Barrios, tip of the cap to him. He looked good. And, he was looking pretty bumpy the first couple of months, very up and down for him. But tonight, I mean, the last couple of starts, he has been looking better. He really took a simple approach here against the Red Sox tonight. And honestly, a simple approach, I think right now with this Red Sox offense, is probably the best approach. What do I mean by a simple approach? Pounding the zone with strikes, using that fastball, going outside the zone with the breaking stuff. Pretty simple approach, right? And the Red Sox are just falling victim to it all night. And the reason that's going to work on this Red Sox team is because right now, coming into tonight, they had the 6th highest chase rate in Major League Baseball in the year. This is a Red Sox team where they're going to be swinging a lot. How many times have I said that on this show? They swing out of their shoes. They're always swinging. And that can work out for this team a lot. But tonight, they were just fooled with Jose Barrios. 9 whiffs on the slurve. They were chasing outside the zone on that pitch all night. 2 whiffs on the changeup, 2 on the cutter. Pounding the strike zone with the fastball. He only allowed 4 hits through 6 innings. There's nothing really to talk about. Roman Anthony had the double in the first inning. About, 103 miles per hour off the bat. Nothing else. Nothing else to talk about. Just an embarrassment. We already talked about Brian Bayo. I decided to go with him first. But the bullpen, just awful. Luis Guerrero, he was having trouble with his landing spot. They had to come out there to the mound and kind of fix it up a little bit. I don't know. Didn't seem to bother Jose Barrios here tonight. Gave up a couple of hits, including a double. Alejandro Kirk, they made it 4-0 at the time. Bernardino has not been looking very good. He's been very inconsistent here over the last few weeks. He walked Jimenez with the bases loaded that made it 5-0. Springer came in the 8th inning. Base hit that made it 6-0. Alcala, he came in. Sac fly to Straw. Jimenez, base hit, made it 9-0. It's an embarrassing night. Not really much to talk about. Let's move on from this one. I don't want to talk about this game. This was, watching this one tonight, it was awful. It was weird because, anytime the Blue Jays scored a run here tonight, 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, felt like every time, especially after 1-0, when they got the second run, the third run, it just felt like your odds of winning went down 20% each time. That's just how it's been with this offense as of late. I mean, and this is where I can sympathize with people when they say, why did they trade? If you're going to trade Rafi, why did you trade him when you didn't have Bregman, you didn't have Yoshida? I mean, listen, when it comes to negotiations with the front office, teams, every team's got their own agenda out there. They got to start moving. They got to start checking off boxes and doing what they got to do, for their own future, because, hey, these phone calls, they start ringing more and more as you get closer to not just the deadline, but as you get closer to July. Ken Rosenthal, he's been talking lately a lot, Jeff Passan as well, right? Phone calls are starting to be made. So, I know it's easy to say, why didn't you just wait? If you wanted to trade Rafi, why didn't you just wait until, after the All-Star break when you got Bregman back and Yoshida, That's just not how life works sometimes. It's just not the way it works. If you want to get a deal done and sometimes you got to do it in a timely manner where it's going to be good for both sides. So it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, listen, they've gotten some runs across the board here. So it's, they've had a lot of bad outings here with the offense, but they have shown the ability to put runs on the board. They just got to, I don't know. It's easier said than done, right? They got to change their approach. They got to make adjustments. Well, let's see what they can do against Chris Bassett here tomorrow. Let's talk about him. Chris Bassett, he's having himself a really solid year. He's 7-3, 3.61 ERA. FIP is right around the same. Pretty solid metrics. I cannot speak. Pretty solid metrics with him. Fastball has been a great pitch for him this year. He's getting good stuff with the breaking pitches. He's limiting the exit velo. He's getting a lot of weak contact. He's going to throw a ton of strikes. He's in the 90th percentile when it comes to his walk percentage. Hard hit percentage is good. Gets a good amount of ground balls as well. Chris Bassett, he's going to go out there. He's going to have a good tempo. He's going to throw a lot of strikes. The Red Sox just got to find some mistakes along the way, and you got to get some good pitching from Lucas Giolito. Now, Lucas Giolito has been looking very solid as of late. Really starting, against the Giants, not his best performance, but, it was a game that you could have won, right? In the end, the defense let them down, and the bullpen wasn't able to hold it down. He didn't look terrible in that last start. He allowed 4 runs. Only 2 of them were earned. Remember that. There was an error along the way. He only gave up 4 hits, 2 walks. It was not a bad outing for Giolito at all. He's looked pretty solid here over the last couple of outings. But, hey, I believe, actually, Giolito, I think his first start back was against the Blue Jays. He was looking pretty good in that one. Was that the game that Vlad hit the go-ahead home run? I don't remember. It might have been. I can't remember. But, hey, last time against the Blue Jays, 6 innings, 5 hits, 3 earned, 7 Ks. So, gave up a couple of homers along the way. Keep Giolito, man, right? He's going to work up in the zone a lot. But with this Blue Jays team, you got to be careful, man, because they got some good bats. All right, let's go over to Giolito. As you can see, the metrics don't look great with him so far. But, he's getting a decent amount of chase, an all right amount of strikeouts, pretty middle of the road with the walks, right? But really, I'm looking at the last few starts with him. He's looking a lot better, right? He's going to live up in the zone with the fastball. He's going to try and work down with the changeup. That's the bread and butter with Giolito, in my opinion. Work up in the zone with the velo. Work down with the changeups. Try not to hang those changeups. That's pretty much it, in my opinion, with Giolito. Working some sliders along the way, working a couple of curves, and not really a whole lot. You're really just going to see 3 pitches from Giolito. So for me, I think it's more about location with him and just changing eye levels. If he can do that, I think he'll have success. But it's not going to be an easy one against Chris Bassett tomorrow. Before we get to the... You know what? Let's actually get to the roster news really quick. We got a few things to talk about. Like I said, you would love for Bregman and Yoshida to get back sooner rather than later. My goodness, you need any kind of a bat at this point. I mean, Yostinson Garcia, the password, hit another home run here tonight. Has over a 900 OPS at AAA. I mean, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say we need to have all these rookies come and save the day, but I'll take any bat at this point, for crying out loud. I mean, the password, man, this guy's getting the job done. Him and Blaze Jordan, they're looking great down at AAA. But we do got some news when it comes to Alex Bregman and Yoshida. Also, I forgot to mention this as well. Marcelo Meyer on the bereavement list, out for the weekend. Prayers going out to Marcelo Meyer and his family. But when it comes to Alex Bregman, who is a finalist in All-Star Game voting, by the way, in case you missed that. Good for Alex Bregman. To me, sorry, Jose Ramirez, he deserves it, right? Bregman, he was having a great year. I think if he would have stayed healthy, he would have absolutely had a shot to win that. It's actually kind of a shame that Bregman wasn't able to avoid the IL, because that would have been a really good race in the voting, if you ask me. But when it comes to Bregman, he is going to be going on I believe they're looking for, I don't know if he's going to go on a rehab assignment, but they are looking for him to return after the All-Star break. Alex Cora is saying doesn't really want to push it. They got to be smart about it. That's what I've been saying, too. I was saying maybe the series before the All-Star break, just to get a few games under his belt. But at this point, the Red Sox, they're looking towards the second half. I mean, you don't got a lot of time before the deadline at that point. You got, less than a couple of weeks before the deadline, so that's going to be interesting. So, well, I'll talk about Bregman here in just a second with the Jeff Passan article. Now, with Masataka Yoshida, they're looking for a rehab assignment this coming Tuesday. So, that's honestly great to see. Obviously, you need the bat. You need some kind of a bat. He's not going to give you the power like Rafi Devers, of course, but a guy that's going to give you good ABs, He's going to draw some walks. He's going to make a good amount of contact. I think the Red Sox just need a bat like that at this point. It's felt like they've needed that all year. So it's funny, man. This past offseason, people were looking at, how could we get rid of Masataka Yoshida? How can we get him off this roster? How can we get him to Seattle? What team will take his contract? My goodness. People were saying, we will drive Masataka Yoshida to the airport ourselves. And here we are. Funny enough, we're now very excited for Masa to come back. It's funny how life works that way, right? But I would imagine, hopefully, maybe, just go there for the week, and then maybe at the week after he comes back. We'll see. Maybe it only takes a few games. But now with Yoshida, he hasn't been going up against live pitching really at all since spring training. He's been taking ABs off the traject machine to keep up with the timing. But it's going to be interesting to see how many games he feels like he's going to need against live pitching. I would imagine at least a week, or at least, 4 or 5 games, I would think. But they're going to need him back. So Bregman, Yoshida. Oh, please get them back. Here we go. Tanner Houck. We got some news on him as well. He had a rehab assignment yesterday. Not looking very good. Couple of starts, 2 2/3 innings, 5 earned. I believe a couple of home runs along the way. Tanner Houck is not looking very good, ladies and gentlemen. This is a little worrisome, but they do have a plan for Tanner Houck. They are looking to use him after an opener comes in for the next outing, right? So they're going to have him warm up in the bullpen just a little bit longer. All right, well, let's see. I don't know. As a starter, he just can't seem to find his mojo. Let's see if maybe a bit of a different approach. Go with a guy out of the bullpen to start the game for an inning or two, and then Tanner Houck comes in like the 2nd or 3rd inning or whatever. I'm not sure if that's going to make much of a difference. I don't know. Some pitchers, sometimes even little things like that could go a long way. Maybe that could help him when it comes out, when it comes to his, mentality, going into the game, coming out of the bullpen, maybe it gives you a little extra adrenaline or something, At the end of the day, I think it's just really, it's going to come down to him executing at the end. I know that's, as simple as that sounds silly, but that's the thing with him, man. I've been wondering if there's something going on mechanically with him, if he just doesn't have a feel for things. I'm not sure what's going on. He was saying he was, dealing with some arm issues in the beginning of the year. Could that be carrying over? Well, who knows? I think personally, I wonder if that could go either way. Right. I wonder if, let's say that doesn't go well. Let's say they do the opener. He comes in, 2nd or 3rd inning, whatever it may be, and he's still having his issues. I mean, I think you could go either way. Could you keep trying that approach, or do you just have him go to the bullpen? I mean, I don't know. Justin Slayton. Funny enough with Justin Slayton, I don't know why in my head I'm thinking this guy's probably starting to ramp up a little bit, but he's only just throwing right now, only playing catch right now. So Justin Slayton, when is he going to get back? I don't know. That's something I would pay attention to. I don't know why maybe I'm just imagining it. I'm thinking this guy's probably ramping up, throwing bullpens, and then I read today he's really just playing catch. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, he's still a little behind here. Who knows? I don't know what to think about Justin Slayton right now. But to me, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Tanner Houck's in the bullpen at some point. And I don't think that would be a bad thing necessarily. The guy's had success out of the bullpen in his career. And that's happened a lot with some of these starters over the last, couple of years or so, right? Going to the bullpen kind of helps them simplify some things, and then they kind of ramp back up to being a starter again. Could something like that work for Tanner Houck? I don't know. Or maybe this new approach coming in after an opener, maybe it gives him a little extra time to warm up in the bullpen and get a better feel for things. Maybe he just needs a little extra to warm up. I don't know, just to get things right. So who knows? Sometimes little things like that can go a long way. But Tanner Houck, that is the latest on him. But speaking of the bullpen, Jordan Hicks, did throw in tonight's game for the Woo Sox. Threw an inning, 1 hit, 2 Ks, touched 100 miles per hour a couple of times. So Jordan Hicks looks like he's going to be coming back here rather soon. Let's touch on the Craig Breslow comments. For the Nesson viewers, I am going to wrap it up right there. We are out of time here on Nesson, but if you do want to catch the end of the show, if you want to catch the Craig Breslow comments from the off day yesterday, as well as the Jeff Passan article, you can see the rest of the episode on YouTube on Monster Territory. Come check it out. But for Nesson viewers, thank you for watching. We are out of time. I will be back here tomorrow night for the post-game coverage. But for everyone here still on YouTube, thank you for joining me here tonight. You guys are awesome. We've had right around 100 people the entire night. So I appreciate you, my friends. Let's talk about Breslow. Talking with the media yesterday, I believe he was on WEEI, saying he's looking to improve the team. Thinks they have a good chance at making a deep postseason run. Well, I mean, listen, we all thought coming into the year, a lot of people were thinking this Red Sox team was looking well built to at least make the postseason, right? At least as a wild card. The funny thing with this Red Sox team right now, man, they're 2.5 out of a wild card spot. As bad as it seems right now, they now have a negative run differential, by the way. That is terrible. As bad as it seems, though, they are still just right there in the wild card race. I know it sounds crazy to say, but I do wonder if this team is a couple of guys coming back like Bregman, Yoshida, maybe a move to add something to the lineup, maybe get one guy for the rotation, and all of a sudden you might be back in this thing. I keep thinking about, and I know a lot of you might think, oh, Robbie, you're just being delusional. You're just being you're being a homer for the Red Sox. You're just being too positive. You're being overly optimistic. But no, I don't know. When I think about this team, when I think of all the talent they have, I really think about the Tigers last year. I really do. I'm not even trying to make that sound like a hopeful, overly optimistic kind of a thing. I just really think about that team. You had a guy like Tarek Skubal, who is the reigning Cy Young winner. He was dominating last year. And this Red Sox team, you got Garrett Crochet, right? They had Jack Flaherty behind him. The Red Sox don't really have a Jack Flaherty at this point. You have kind of a bunch of different guys trying to be that guy behind Crochet, but not so much. That's the one difference of the pitching staff. That Tigers bullpen was really good. I think this Red Sox bullpen is also really good. I think they've been gassed as of late, but you're going to be getting Jordan Hicks back in this bullpen. I think that's only going to help. Guy's got good stuff, good velo. I think that's only going to help. And, Slayton, let's see what happens with him. But, you got good arms in this bullpen. I just think they have been taxed a little bit over the last week and a half or so. Sure, had the day off, but I don't know. I think this bullpen is good. And when you look at the rankings, they are one of the top bullpens in Major League Baseball when it comes to Fangraph wins above replacement. So I make that comparison with the Tigers from last year. You have an ace. You have good arms in the bullpen. And you do have bats in this lineup that are underachieving, just like the Tigers last year. You had guys like Spencer Torkelson last year. Riley Green was a good bat for them last year. They were having injuries last year. But, they still, in the second half, after getting to the trade deadline, they traded away Jack Flaherty. And then they went on a run in the second half. I wonder if that is what this team could end up being. I just think they're too talented, even without Rafi. Imagine when we get Bregman back in this lineup. You need Bregman in this lineup, right? Like, if Bregman's out for the year, I'm saying just sell, just trade everyone. That's kind of where I'm at. But I know he's coming back, so that's kind of where I'm at. with this team. I just wonder if they have a Tigers run in them. Make a couple of moves along the way. And that's another thing. The Tigers weren't even adding last year. I mean, they brought back Trey Sweeney, who ended up, being a decent player for them in the second half. He stepped up for them. And that's another thing. Like the Red Sox, I think, are in a position where you could move a couple of guys. Actually, if you want to make a comparison, how about this one? The Tigers, they moved Jack Flaherty. Well, the Red Sox, you look at Jarren Duran, he's been popping up in the rumor mill, right? Could the Red Sox move someone like Jarren Duran to, get all these guys into the lineup now? You bring back some pieces that can maybe help you in some other areas, maybe get a starting pitcher back, And then all of a sudden you might have something. It's kind of where, again, I see this Tigers team a little bit. Not fully, but I see some similarities. Maybe I'm delusional. Maybe I'm just looking for hope any way I can. But I just don't think I'm at the point yet where I'm saying blow it up. Fire Craig Breslow. Fire Alex Cora. I'm not at that point yet. I'm just not. And I refuse. Until this team is at they're like 4 or 5 games out of a wild card. You know what I mean? Like, once we're there, if we get swept this weekend and we're 5 out by the end of the weekend, then I'm going to be like, okay, well, it's been fun, everybody. Walker Buehler, go have fun with the Dodgers. Jarren Duran, go have fun with the Padres, Braves, wherever you go. Aroldis Chapman, hey, go dominate for the Tigers or the Phillies, Mets. See you later. Thank you for the first couple of months, and adios. But I'm just not at that point. Even after tonight, I know that sounds crazy, and I know I'm going to get someone that comments on this. I know someone's going to comment post-stream and say, Robbie, you're a moron. Well, you're not completely wrong with that. But, I'm just not there. I'm not there yet. Now, with Breslow, I mean, he's saying he wants to improve the team. Listen, people might get mad at that. I am not going to get mad at the guy running the show that wants to make the team better. And of course, people are they're going to look for the arguments. They're going to, he wants to make the team better. Well, then why did he trade Raffy away? Well, those are for different reasons, right? But after trading Raffy, if he wants to try and bring in some other pieces to help improve the roster, I'm not going to get mad at that. I'm just not. And he's shown that he can be not just aggressive, but bold, obviously, trading away Raffy Devers, right? So I know Breslow is going to go out there and make some moves. This guy is going to get something done. So if we're looking at some needs for this Red Sox team, well, I think we all know we all know what this team needs, right? You need a bat in the lineup. I honestly, listen, I'm happy with it, with what Abraham Toro, Romy Gonzalez have been able to do up to this point. Sure. But I think you need to see if you can get an everyday option at first base. I think that's fair to say. And then you can have those guys come off the bench if that's what it ends up being, right? If you have the roster flexibility to do that. So that's what I think. An everyday first base option that you can plug in. I'm going to say this right now. If Josh Naylor is available, if the D-backs end up selling, right, they're in a bit of a weird spot right now, too. They don't have Burns. Corbin Carroll is going to be out for a while with a broken wrist or a fracture or whatever it was. I think Josh Naylor would be perfect for this lineup. And here's why. He's going to bring you some pop in the middle of the order. But with Josh Naylor, a guy that I feel like could actually add a bit of energy into the clubhouse, a big-time competitor, but hitting 307, a 363 on base, a 479 on the slugging, a 133 WRC plus. But I'm not just looking at those numbers. Those are fine. I'm looking at the low strikeout rate. 13% strikeout rate. That's very good. Very good. And I think that's something that would really help out the Red Sox. They have one of the highest strikeout rates in Major League Baseball. I think Josh Naylor would be my number one option for an everyday first baseman. You could go for someone like Ryan O'Hearn, in division trade. He's having a career year. I think that could make some sense. He's going to be a rental. He doesn't have much of a track record. Sure, market is going to come into play a little bit. I think he's going to be sought after by teams like the Mariners, the Rangers I can see getting involved, maybe the Astros, teams like that. That could be an option. And obviously, he's been in the AL East for a while. He knows these guys. Maybe the Red Sox make a call and maybe they can get something done for Ryan O'Hearn. Another option, and this comes down to whether or not the Brewers want to sell Rhys Hoskins. I think Rhys Hoskins could make a lot of sense. Now, with Hoskins, he's not going to give you that same slash line like Josh Naylor. He is going to give you some strikeouts as well. But what I do like with Hoskins is that he's going to give you some pop from the right side. 12 homers on the year. He's got a 334 on base as well. 427 on the slugging, a 111 WRC plus. You know, a guy that has postseason experience, right? Those years with the Phillies, getting to the World Series in 2022. I think Hoskins would be a nice addition for the Red Sox. And this is where I get into the next option, or the next thing that the Red Sox need. They need a number two. They need a number two in this rotation, for crying out loud. And I think Freddie Peralta would be at the top of my list, right? He would be under control for next year as well. I wouldn't mind a rental like a Merrill Kelly. I think Merrill Kelly would actually fit very nicely into this rotation. Sure, he would be a rental. He is going to be a free agent after this year. But I like the idea of Merrill Kelly because when Bregman comes back, I think you're going to see an improved defense in the infield. Bregman, obviously, at third base, Gold Glove third baseman. Trevor Story, he's going to be solid at shortstop. He's going to get the job done. Marcelo Meyer now at second base. So I think you're going to have an improved infield. Merrill Kelly is a guy that gets ground balls. So if you wanted to go to the rental route, that's where I'm going. I'm going to see if he's available. All right. But Freddie Peralta would be my number one option. Now, it's going to cost you a bit, right? He's not going to be just a rental. He's going to be only $8 million with a club option for next year. To me, I think that could be worth it. If you could have Garrett Crochet, Freddie Peralta at the top of the rotation, I think that is pretty nasty, if you ask me. I think that's what the Red Sox need. I think they need someone else to help stabilize the rotation, take pressure off of guys like Brian Bale, Lucas Giolito, Richard Fitz as he continues to ramp himself back up. Whatever happens here with Tanner Houck, Cutter Crawford now, he's not coming back, so you can't count on him now for this year. So, this Red Sox rotation, they really need help. I mean, we've known this, and I'm not even bringing up Walker Buehler. I mean, at this point, I wonder what happens with Walker Buehler. I was kind of playing around with some trade scenarios where I wonder if you could do something where you pair Walker Buehler with Jarren Duran. Could you maybe do something, say, with, I don't know, the Dodgers? They could use an upgrade out in left field. Could you do some kind of a 3-team trade where the Dodgers, Michael Conforto, has not been a good option for them this year? He's been a bust of a signing. But maybe the Dodgers maybe they could find a way to get out of that. Bring in Jarren Duran. They could put him in left field, right? That would give them some more speed in the lineup, another dynamic in that lineup. I don't know, send Michael Conforto somewhere. Walker Buehler, now he can go back to the Dodgers, and they know him, obviously, and maybe they could figure out something with him. And then you could, in that sort of scenario, maybe the Red Sox could find a way to use Jarren Duran's value to bring back a starter somewhere. Not necessarily from the Dodgers, but maybe the Dodgers, with the prospects that they have, they could send a guy or two to another team, maybe like the Brewers, right? And then the Brewers could send back Peralta to the Red Sox. Maybe there's some kind of a scenario out there like that, to where you can kind of help out all three teams. I wonder if there could be something creative like that you can do. But those are the two guys that I'm looking for. I'm looking for Freddie Peralta. Could you do something with Rhys Hoskins? Maybe there, like a package kind of a deal. Or could you go get Peralta? Maybe go get someone like Josh Naylor, whatever it is, that's what I think the Red Sox need to do. I think they need an everyday option that you can just plug into the lineup every day. You write his name in, You don't have to worry about it for the rest of the year, right? You're not going to be worrying about platoons at first base. That's kind of where I'm at right now. That's where I'm at with this Red Sox team. I'm not ready to start, firing off the signals that we're selling, right? Not there. Waiting for these guys to get healthy, make a couple of moves along the way. And that could maybe, set you up for a very good August and finish off with a strong September to get into the postseason. We saw it last year with the Tigers. Again, I see some similarities there. Before I get to the Jeff Passan article, we do have one more word from our sponsor. I'll be right back.
Well, if you're a normal human, you can't speak English to your pup. But what you can do to understand what they love, which is Spot and Tango on Kibble, is to see how they react when you put the unkibble in the bowl. And my pup, Penelope, loves it. So does Bella.
Well, Bella speaks Spanish, so she says, muy bien. I love this stuff.
She says, wow, Dad, thanks for creating a custom plan based on my age, weight, breed, and activity level. You nailed it. And also, it's made with 100% whole fresh ingredients like real USDA meats, fruits, and veggies, but it's 40% less expensive than frozen food. So upgrade your pet's bowl with Spot and Tango Unkibble. And for a limited time, go to spotandtango.com/foul and use code FOUL for 50% off your first order. That's spotandtango.com/foul, code FOUL to get 50% off your first order.
All righty, let's get to the Jeff Passan article, but I do want to touch on this one comment here from Brent in the chat. You said here the Brewers are not likely selling. They're in the playoff hunt. I didn't explain why I think the Brewers could possibly trade Freddie Peralta. You are right. They are in the playoff hunt, but I'm looking at what they did a few years ago with Josh Hader. Remember, they were in first place when they traded away Josh Hader. They had Devin Williams waiting in the wings. The Brewers are a small market team. They have to keep one eye on the future at all times. They want to stay competitive, though. So that's where I'm wondering, could there be a scenario where, because they're not going to re-sign Freddie Peralta long-term, could they keep him for next year and then move him at the deadline next year? Sure, they could go that route too, but you would get more for him now. So the Brewers, I could see them looking at that as a chance to bring in, some young players that they could have under control for the next 6 years or so. I was even thinking of a scenario with the Dodgers. Could you do some kind of a 3-team trade where, Peralta somehow ends up with the Red Sox, Duran can go to the Dodgers, and then the Dodgers, they could send someone like an Alex Freeland, who's pretty much blocked with the Dodgers, maybe a couple other pieces along with him. And, I don't know. Maybe even the Brewers would take on Michael Conforto, right? So the Dodgers would be like, oh, hey, we'll eat some of his contract here. Take Michael Conforto. We'll give you Alex Freeland as well. Maybe another prospect or two. That's what I could see the Brewers doing to capitalize on his value. They did the same thing with Josh Hader. A little different situations, right? A bit different there. But that's how the Brewers have to operate. Right? Again, they were in first place when they traded Josh Hader. Right? They ended up struggling after that. And I could see some people saying too, well, the Brewers learned their lesson from that. No, that's business, right? Sure, did that work out? Well, no, the Brewers ended up struggling after that, right? But at the end of the day, business is business. And the Brewers, they're not going to re-sign Freddie Peralta. It might make a lot of sense for them to trade Freddie Peralta, especially because Jacob Misarowski got called up recently. He's dominating. Brandon Woodruff is going to be coming back soon, right? Quinn Priester, Red Sox legend, Quinn Priester has found his way in Milwaukee. So all of a sudden, remember at the beginning of the year, the Brewers, they had all these problems with the rotation. And now all of a sudden, they're looking pretty good, right? So I could see the Brewers operating in that way. We will see what ends up happening there. We will see. But Marco Scudero, Brewers sold Hader the same year they won the division. I think they struggled in the second half, I believe. That was 2022. And no, they traded away Hader in 2022. Let me make sure on that. I believe that was 2022. Yeah, that was 22. Yeah, they finished 86 and 76. They missed they missed the playoffs. Yeah, they finished one game out in the wild card race. Yeah, so no, Brewers, they traded Hader when they were in first place, and then they missed the playoffs. Sound FX with a super chat, $2. Boston lost, ugly Robbie. My Braves are down bad. Yeah, the Braves are going to be interesting for the deadline too. That's such an interesting team. I don't know even what their plan is going to. Well, no one knows what their plan is. I can't even figure out what they would even do. But let's get to Passan's article here. I just want to touch on these guys again really quick. So Jeff Passan, he came out with this. I actually did a video on this. If you want to go watch that video on my main channel, you can go see that. But Alex Bregman at number 1. That guy's not getting traded. I would be shocked if they traded Bregman. I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to say definitively I would do this, but I'd probably take a week's vacation if they traded Bregman. I would even think about probably even canceling this show, to be honest with you. That would be the worst move, in my opinion, to trade Alex Bregman. That'd be so idiotic if they did that. They need to get him signed to an extension. Absolutely not. Jarren Duran, he gives it a 25% chance. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm closer to 50, to be honest. I really am. I'd even go even a little higher. I'm starting to get this feeling that Duran, I think, is going to get moved, right? I really am starting to think that because you especially with Massa coming back, you have got to find a way to create space here. Roman Anthony, they want to keep him up. There's no reason to send Anthony back down to AAA. If anything, you want Roman Anthony to stay up at the major league level so he can start seeing these different pitches, right? Obviously, you're going to see better movement at the major league level. You're going to see just better velo, all right? The way these pitchers attack the zone. He needs to stay up and learn at the major league level. Going down to AAA is not going to do him any good. So, to me, I mean, could you say, well, Wilyer Abreu? Here's the thing with Wilyer Abreu. Wilyer Abreu is a really good right fielder. He's very good out there, right? He's got a good arm for out there. He's got that power upside with him. I think that's a guy, and he has another year of control. I think with Duran, he's closer to free agency. He still has a lot of control himself. But I think with Duran, that skill set that he brings to the table is not really helping the Red Sox. You know, his numbers aren't really what they were from last year. I still think he brings a lot to the table, though. And I think he could bring a lot to the table to other teams out there that could use some more speed. If the Braves were to add another guy, I think they need to add a guy with speed. All right. They're one of the slowest teams in Major League Baseball. They could use another guy like Duran, right? I think the Dodgers, like I mentioned, if they really wanted to maximize their lineup, adding a guy like him where you have, could you imagine Jarren Duran in the Dodgers lineup where you have all of these guys behind him, like, Ohtani, Freeman, Betts, right? Just to name a few. Duran, I could see him being so much better with the Dodgers because he has so many more guys around him that would protect him more, you know? I think he's being attacked differently this year. I think he would be really good with the Dodgers personally, or the Padres, right? That's another team. If they were to try to work out like a 3-team trade, could you do something with with San Diego? I don't know. Like, if you were to do a straight up deal with the Padres, Ethan Salas, who's out with a back injury right now, but he's going to be back in the next couple of weeks. Could you do something like him, a young catcher, top 100 prospect that has a lot of upside? Maybe you could throw in like Jeremiah Estrada, a couple of prospects along with him, or whatever it may be, you know? Could you do something with the Padres? AJ Preller's aggressive. I could see something like that. But Duran, I'm starting to think he's going to get moved because they have to make room. I think Wilyer, I think there's just more upside with him. I think Duran has pretty much hit that ceiling. I could be wrong on that, but I think Abreu still has more to tap into, and he brings you good defense out in right field. Now, he lists the Padres, the Braves. He also says the Guardians and the Royals. You know, I'll even mention this as well. Could you do something with Chris Bubic with the Royals? John Morosi talked about Chris Bubick as a possible trade candidate yesterday. I've been wondering about Bubick for a little bit now because the Royals need bats and they have a lot of pitching. Now, Cole Reagans is dealing with a bit of a shoulder thing right now, but they got a lot of pitching there, especially since Noah Cameron's come up this year and he's done very well. Those two teams could match up, I think. Could you add Bubick, who also has one more year of control? He just went into the rotation this year. Didn't pitch a whole lot the last couple of years, but to me, he kind of just came out of nowhere this year. I thought he was going to have a good year, but not this good. Could you do something there? Maybe. Could be something. The Giants, I don't think so. The Phillies and the Mets are interesting. They just have a lot of lefty bats. And I think they have the assets to get a deal done, but would they want someone like Duran, or would those teams prefer a right-handed bat? I think Duran, I don't know, man. I have a feeling that Duran could end up getting moved. Even if they won the next 10 straight games, I could still see Duran getting moved. He mentions Aroldis Chapman. Chapman's an interesting one because it's one of those things where it's tough because he's been so good this year, easily the best arm out of their bullpen. He's been one of the best closers in baseball this year. Whenever he comes into the game, you feel confident. But I wonder from Craig's point of view, where they feel like they could move him, bring some guys back, and then maybe someone like Jordan Hicks could possibly step into that role, because you are getting him now. I'm not saying that's what I would do. I'm wondering if that's what they think, right? Trading Chapman, I think, would be, I want to keep him because he's been so good in the bullpen. I want to keep him. But, teams out there will always want bullpen help, and they will pay a lot to get a deal done, right? He lists the Mets, the Phillies, and the Tigers. I think the Tigers would make a lot of sense. They need more velo in the bullpen. They need a shutdown guy back there. They lack that. They've been going with a couple of different guys. I think the Mets could make some sense, all right? Give you another option with Edwin Diaz. The Phillies, they lost Jose Alvarado, so you would be adding a big-time lefty with Chapman back into the mix there, bring some stability to the bullpen. I'm right now like 50-50 on Chapman. I think there's a case to keep him, and I think there's a case to move him. I think it's going to come down to where are they in the standings. I'll say this. If they have a wild card spot, I think they end up hanging on to him. But if they're a few games out of a wild card spot, I think they could move him. I think. So, the last person on this list, Walker Buehler. I honestly could see Buehler getting moved no matter the situation, because he's been really inconsistent with the Red Sox. This just might not be a good fit for him. It just might not be the right situation for Buehler, right? And, is he a change of scenery candidate? I think that's possible. I think that is something you could definitely consider with Buehler. Going back to the Dodgers, the team that's known him since they've drafted him. That could make sense, right? And they need pitching, right? The Cubs, they got some good pitching development over there. They lost Justin Steele for the year. I think that could make some sense. He lists the Astros like all over the place with pitching. I don't know. With Buehler, he's not going to cost a lot. I mean, pretty much it's just kind of what team would take on his contract, really. Blue Jays, I don't see that. Padres, it's interesting. I think if you were to move Buehler, I think it would make a lot of sense to move him back to the Dodgers, right? He's comfortable there. Maybe, and who knows, if he ends up pitching well for the rest of the year, maybe they could work out some kind of an extension. I would say the Dodgers or the Cubs for Buehler, but I think with Buehler, either way, whether they're in the mix, again, I think it really comes down to what's going to happen here over the next month or so. If he gets himself right, if he figures himself out, of course you can keep him, right? I think it depends, like, can they bring in another guy? If they could bring in Freddie Peralta, right, or one of these guys that could be a 2 or at least a solid 3 in the rotation, I think that could make someone like Buehler expendable, if they could get something back for him. I think it really just comes down to that. But that's all I got. That's all I got on that. Those are the 4 guys mentioned in Passan's article. Obviously, times are tough right now, ladies and gentlemen. The Red Sox, they stink right now. And tip of the cap to the Blue Jays. They are looking very good. Wow, the Blue Jays just went to town on the Red Sox here tonight. But everybody, I'm going to wrap it up right there. Thank you for joining me on this depressing Friday night. We'll be back here tomorrow, though, for more post-game coverage. Hopefully, it's a better night tomorrow. I see some Blue Jays fans in here. Focal, how you doing, my friend? How you doing? Good game tonight, Focal. How you doing? But everybody, if you can, on the way out, hit the like button for me, subscribe if you're new, and we'll be back tomorrow night.